Okay, welcome to Into the Channel, a podcast primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come rock with us. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Comments, ratings, reviews, always appreciated. At ITC_pod on X, at Into the Channel pod on Threads. I am your host, Dino Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Angle. What is up, man?
I'm feeling great, buddy. I feel like this time happens a lot where I look at the football calendar and I think about the term international break with scare quotes around it. And I hear the word break and I got to think some of these players are like, break for who? It's not a break for them. And I will say, maybe selfishly, not so much of a break for us, but it means we got a lot of great football to watch.
Definitely not a break for us. We are doing double duty, triple duty, huge week of football. I really can't believe the sheer amount of international break football we get to feast on while the Champions League and domestic leagues take a breath. In Europe, we had the semifinals of the UEFA Women's Nations League. How about a little Spain versus Netherlands on one screen, a little Germany versus France on the other? We also got to watch the first leg of the Nations League relegation/promotion matchups where some of those small but mighty League B teams, Croatia, Serbia, Hungary, Bosnia, and Herzegovina, tried to topple some of the League A bronze medalists, third place finishers Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and Belgium. These Nations League placements really matter, not only for this summer's Olympics, but also for the 2025 Euros and the 2027 Women's World Cup. So those were fun. On this side of the pond, though, we are waist deep in CONCACAF Gold Cup action, and we're going to dive way into what we saw this week. Mr. Grand Angle, what a week of football. Where on earth do we need to get started?
I mean, if we're asking where on earth, I think maybe selfishly again, let's start in the old US of A.
America.
U.S. Women's National Team 4, Argentina 0.
Let's go.
It's hard for us to escape viewing women's international football outside of the U.S. Women's National Team prism, but I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that it felt like a lot of the footballing world was watching this match. Everybody's kind of keeping a close eye of, has the USA's downfall been overstated? Is it even a downfall? Where are they post 2023 World Cup? So, Tuesday's 5-0 victory over Dominican Republic. DR is number 107 in the FIFA World Rankings. That was never really going to give anybody like hard data to feel comfortable going off of on the squad's progress.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's fair to say, going into that match, Argentina was ranked number 31 by the FIFA rankings. We'll talk more about FIFA rankings later. They're not the end-all be-all, but they give you a decent gauge. So, Argentina, they're a fellow World Cup participant. This gave us something to chew on. And what I think it gave us to chew on is that USA started fast.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with Jaden Shaw. And I would like you to please walk us through what you saw, especially in those dizzying first 20 minutes of the match.
I'm glad we're starting here because, I posed the question a few weeks back when we were talking about Champions League. And I'm like, all right, U.S. Women's National Team, where's our Senior Gapset? Where's our Rosa Kafaji? Where's our Lily Johannes? We'll get to Lily later, especially with the Netherlands falling to Spain in the Nations League, while the old Stars and Stripes, just out here cooking all this CONCACAF competition, just saying. But I digress. Buddy, looks like our budding superstars were hidden right in plain sight. Olivia Moultrie, 2 goals against the Dominican Republic, which I believe were her first goals for the U.S. Women's National Team in just her 3rd appearance ever for the USA. Stats courtesy of USsoccer.com. And well, it turns out we've got to talk about that other absolute supernova you mentioned, Jaden Shaw. Let's go. 10th minute.
Yeah.
Shaw caught him sleeping. While a couple of Argentina defenders were busy complaining to the ref, Lindsey Horan takes a quick free kick, gets it to Shaw, who drives the ball in at a pretty wicked angle, and even more quickly slots home an absolute dart, like basically centimeters inside the near post. Really clever, really opportunistic, fast twitch, deadly accurate, incredible goal to put the U.S. ahead. And 7 minutes later, gorgeous cross in from Rose Lavelle. I thought this moment was really interesting. So the ball's heading Alex Morgan's way, who's got really good position. And side note, I thought she played really well in this one. We'll talk about that one later. Morgan's just kind of waiting on it. Shaw, on the other hand, attacks the cross with ferocity. Steps in front of Morgan like prime Deion Sanders, blasts in a one-timer, flawless in its execution. Argentine goalkeeper Laurina Oliveros absolutely frozen. Not that it would have mattered. She wasn't getting anywhere near it. It was like smoke coming off the ball. 2-0 USA, 4 goals and 6 caps for Ms. Shaw, and felt like maybe a star might have been born on this night. What'd you think?
I think you're right. The game had a lot of eyes on it. We had talked about Jaden Shaw weeks and weeks ago during one of the friendlies. The athletic ability, the instincts. You talk about her getting in front of Morgan, and then the skill to put it away. I think that's indicative of a lot of parts of her game. To your point about the angle she had on her first goal, I love the fact that she's audacious enough to even try that. So that is super promising. That is super exciting. I'm going to throw you two comparisons. Players who I think Emma Hayes and her staff might be looking at Jaden Shaw and thinking of how she can play on this side. And you're not going to be surprised that if I'm talking about Emma Hayes here, I'm talking about two Chelsea Football Club players. What about a little Guro Reiten? What about a little Johanna Ritten-Kanerud in this game where
Hmm.
Shaw is out there on the wings, but she is absolutely, as we saw in their second goal, she can go into the middle. She can score. She can pass. She's super clever. She comes at you with pace. In the post-match interview on CBS Sports, the interviewer had asked Jaden Shaw about something that Twyla Kilgore, interim USA manager, had said, which was essentially, we want to add some more responsibilities. In essence, we want to add some different things to Jaden Shaw's plate to kind of mix up the way
Interesting.
she plays. What I liked about it was Jaden Shaw's response was, well, I'm not going to get into all that, but I'll tell you that I liked our plan. And then, I'm paraphrasing, but then she had basically said, like, I played well with my teammates, but I liked that Jaden Shaw was like, no, we're not telling you the new stuff that I'm going to be doing. And so I'm going to go back to
Hmm.
it. I just want to kind of get a feel for where you're at on the Wrighton or the Canarud comps. You have a dangerous, quick wing who can also score. Why not get her into those spaces? Why not move her around constantly throughout the match? Am I seeing something that's not there? Where do you land on this?
I mean, I feel like Wrighton and Canarud sort of play pretty confined games actually. Like I think they're
Mm,
very dependable and they're super effective. Like when they go, I think Wrighton maybe they both kind of like sneak in a little bit, but it
yeah,
felt like in that first 20 minutes specifically, Shaw was everywhere. Where
that
she
is true.
she scores like from the left hand side, and then like even on the cross in from Rose Lavelle, she's kind of like shading to the right and then kind of sneaking back inward like towards the middle. So I'm not sure if they just were like, hey, wherever you want to go, wherever the wind takes you, like wherever you see a little space, you do your thing out there. So I think like I like the comparison as a starting point, but it did feel
Yeah.
like, I close my eyes and I try to, replay some of those Jaden Shaw plays, and they all seem to start and end different spots on the field.
Yes.
So it could be even, I don't know, maybe some LJ potential if we want to throw like a Chelsea comp out there.
Oh,
We'll
all
see.
right.
I think the audacity of the strike, when you brought that one up, the name that popped into my head was Diani,
Yeah.
who just is happy to like take a crack at it. We'll talk about her later as well. She's out there gunning, but she's also actually out there playmaking. She had a wicked
Yep.
cross, I think, or like kind of through ball into Roosevelt that nobody else on the field
Yes.
saw. Maybe 10 or 15
Mm-hmm.
minutes later, that I'm just like, holy shit! Like this is a computer out here. You
Yep.
check her age again. It's like, okay, yep, she's still 19. Pretty incredible stuff from her.
I'm right there with you, buddy. That through ball to Lavelle, that is absolutely as exciting as the rocket into the back of the net on her first shot. Once
Hell
you
yeah,
add that element, it's like, we are NBA fans. It's like a player. It's like Steph Curry, who's able to drill threes from 5 feet behind the line, but then he'll also take the ball to the basket, and you're just like, I don't know what to do here. You're a defender, and you are in the blender at that point.
yeah. No, there's nothing to do. Yeah,
And we're just
let's go,
cracking a beer
John.
because that's exciting, bro. Because
Let's
she
go.
can really, really fucking play. So let's keep it moving. So the first half, pretty great in general. USA goes into the dressing room. They're up 3-0. The link up play. Here's another thing that I wanted to
Mm.
get your opinion on. So I feel like I'm going to name a lot of players who were out there on the pitch at one time, but I felt like I liked the look from all these folks. Like obviously Lindsey Horan, you pretty much know what you're going to get from her. You know what time it is. Corbin Albert, who I feel like we're going to talk a little bit about. I thought she played great. Casey Kruger playing right back. Naomi Girma, of course, Rose Lavelle, Tierna Davidson, and Crystal Dunn. They were just they were moving into the space. They had a good feel for where each other were going to be. They knew where they needed to be. I loved kind of the almost like the seesaw nature where you would see Kruger would push way, way up into the attacking third from right back.
Yep.
And then you would see the rest of the team just kind of instinctively sag back to make sure that they're protecting against the counter. Like, it just felt like this is a team that looked way more organized than we saw during the World Cup. And it's a team that had way fewer veterans than what we were seeing fielded in the World Cup. And that's not a shot at those veterans. I feel like we've made our feelings known. I feel like a lot of the post-match comments from a lot of the players who are like, yeah, we went in with a good plan. We knew what we were doing out there today. Like, I feel like there are some subtle things that we could take from those interviews that might give us some insight into how people felt. But I don't know, man. I just feel like there was a clear idea, and I like what you talk about, especially the first 20 minutes. It felt like the idea of those first 20 minutes, give the ball to Jaden Shaw. And then the idea for the rest was, let's play within ourselves. Let's play possession. What did you see in that, like, just offense after that offensive blitz?
Well, I'm glad you brought up link-up play, which I thought really phenomenal in this one. Looking at this matchup versus a DR matchup, a lot more movement, more runs, better vision, more ball movement, just more fluid offense kind of from top to bottom. Against the DR, the press was there, but when we were on the ball, the offense, like, not super duper imaginative. I think as we advance against tougher competition, which, if you saw Brazil, Colombia, maybe not looking so tough, but we'll talk about that one later. Maybe we won't. The one thing the U.S. cannot be is predictable. And I think that's what really sunk them in the World Cup. It was like, oh, okay, and in any sport, men's, women's, doesn't matter. The sport doesn't matter either. If the other team knows what you're going to do, they know what you want to do, you're just making it really easy for them to defend what you have, right? The first goal from Shaw, speaking of being like unpredictable, perfect example of that. Quick free kick from an area where usually you might expect that, like, the 3-person huddle and then our main free kick taker, like doing all the angles and, like, all the calculations and shit. But instead, Lindsey Horan, boom, Argentine defenders kind of looking the ref's way. Quick little pass to Jaden Shaw, right in her path. Boom, she smashes it. And before anyone knows what happens, it's 1-0. And, like, it's early in the match. It's not like what we were in the World Cup where no plan, and, like, the later the match goes, the tighter we get, the more, it's not even risks, but, like, we're trying to make bigger plays that are low probability, so, like, getting a 1-0 lead against a World Cup team, like you mentioned, not a heavy hitter, but still a World Cup team, that had to relieve a lot of the pressure. And now all of a sudden you see much more free flowing, the link up play you mentioned. So again, really encouraging to see real growth from this US team. A pretty noticeable improvement, even just from the DR match a few days prior. I think we saw, like, learnings from that kind of roll into this one.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if you're Twyla Kilgore, certainly if you're Twyla Kilgore's agent, you should be looking around the landscape and being like, hey, everybody knows Emma Hayes has her hands in this now. Don't forget about Twyla, though. If I was Twyla's agent, I'd be like, hey, Emma Hayes is going to show up. And unless Team USA is paying an assistant a lot of money, who's got some money? Who has some money for it?
Chelsea's got an opening.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, what are we doing?
Barcelona, I don't know. Let's go. Let's make some calls.
Yeah, there you go. So Kilgore had, I thought, a really interesting quote after the match. This is courtesy of Jonathan Tannenwald. He's the chief soccer correspondent at the Philadelphia Inquirer. He is at the goalkeeper on Twitter. Awesome Twitter handle, by the way, Jonathan.
Love it.
Quote, I'm really pleased that we were trying to try things. I think we left a lot on the table tonight, but I have every confidence that we'll continue to grow as the tournament goes on, end quote. So I want to read into her words a little bit. I really am interested in her phrasing of, quote, trying to try things.
Love that.
I think it's a subtle nod at the squad looking at playing a more European style. They had a hyper-aggressive press in spots where there were 3-player, 4-player swarms on the ball at a time. I thought that was indicative of them being kind of doing what you've talked about in the past of, like, we know we have great athletes. Our athletes have been in a system for a long time. And, we've talked about Title IX and all this stuff. Like, we know that we develop really big, fast, strong athletes. Now let's play smart around that, use the press. At the same time, they talked a little bit about this, like, on the broadcast as well. But you could see Lindsey Horan and Corbin Albert, they were, like, switching off between playing like a number 8 kind of box-to-box midfielder or a number 6, a little more defensive midfielder. Like, they were kind of picking their spots, rotating, creating those different looks. You talked about Jaden Shaw. like being wherever she needed to be. She was on the left wing. She was on the right wing. She was in the center of the field. She was drifting back into midfield, wherever you needed her. I just think that's all a recipe for something very, very exciting. That if you have these very good young players, these strong athletes, a lot of big players, I feel like we've talked about on this podcast, but Dino and I, we lean toward the term that my wife Jennifer has given me, tall girl bias, where you where you're able to score headers and you're able to defend headers. We have a lot of those advantages. And I'll just say, Argentina, they're not world beaters in the women's game. Their program in terms of investment and development, it's probably fair to say it's in its adolescence. But this was an exciting style of play from USA. And it was an exciting starting 11, I thought. And I think people should be encouraged. And I got to know, because I like a good overreaction. Am I overreacting?
Buddy, if it's even possible, and if this is a word, we might be underreacting.
All right, let's go.
This shit is lit. No coincidence. The two you mentioned, PSG's Corbin Albert started both of these matches against Argentina. Now we've got Lyon's Lindsey Horan in the 11 as well. I think in addition to a little sprinkling of European flavor into our approach, I thought the defenders you mentioned too, Germa, Davidson, Dunn, and Kruger,
hell yeah,
they just were playing smarter passes that got the engine running from deeper in the field. Again, I think about the World Cup too, and it was like a lot of just kind of like long balls, trying to switch like left to right or just go over the top and run onto it. And it was just like, oh, is this like the best that we could? This is the best that we have. Like, Horan's out there. Can't we get her the ball in some space and try to do something and let her be a little bit more creative? I loved how much Horan specifically was involved in this one.
Yes.
She was another one, just a lot of touches in a lot of different parts of the field. And she's happy to facilitate, and I think that's kind of like one of the best parts of her game. She's as smart as anybody on the pitch. She makes good decisions and she's tough. So fuck it. Let's get her the ball and let her go. Rose Lavelle, also awesome in this one. I want to rewind a little bit to Alex Morgan, who we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Alex might have received a little tiny bit of shade on this fine podcast in the past. I thought she played really well and actually fit super nicely into like the new look attack. It didn't feel like we were in the, all right, feed Alex mode. And instead, she moved really well. She attracted defenders everywhere she went. She's still Alex Morgan. She opened stuff up for Shaw and others. She also got on the score sheet with what can only be described as catnip to your boys, a looping header.
Damn right.
And then last thing, an interesting tournament twist that people have been talking about is the seeding. After the group stage, teams are going to be ranked based on tiebreakers. Top 8 will advance, with the top ranked playing the 8th ranked, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, so on and so forth. The tiebreakers are as follows. Total points is 1, 2 goal difference, 3 most goals scored, 4 lowest number of disciplinary points, and 5 they draw straws. I'm absolutely rooting for that, by the way. Let's draw some fucking straws out here. While the USA clinched their spot in the quarters with the win over Argentina, maybe there's some extra impetus for hanging another half dozen on Mexico, who's their next opponent. Make sure we grab that 1 seed. But alternatively, though, I kind of like where Twyla's going with like some of the tinkering. I think there's still some stuff to uncover. But either way, we've got Mexico Monday night, 10:15 p.m. Eastern, 7:15 Pacific. What are you expecting to see in that last group stage match?
I think you're spot on. I'm rooting for more tinkering. I'm rooting for more lineup adjustments. Like I don't want to minimize the importance of like an international tournament like this, but this is the time where teams in the league, if you're playing, and I'm not trying to disrespect Mexico here. They're ranked number 35 in FIFA's world rankings. They're not a bullshit team, but this is sort of the equivalent of, okay, I'm playing a team that I know I have more talent than. So let me just see, like, I'll put in my backup goalkeeper for this League Cup match or something like that. And so let's figure out where are the combinations that we need to play like some really aggressive winning football. So Argentina, I mentioned, they're number 31 in the rankings, in the FIFA World Rankings. To give a little context, Nigeria is number 34. Feels low to me personally. Mexico, I mentioned, number 35. And Jamaica, number 40. So these are the squads that we're kind of looking at in that range. But let me just say, first things first, Mexico, I think they're going to be in trouble in this one. Even when we do tinker with the lineup.
Tinker, no tinker.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I think Mexico, they might be fighting an uphill battle in this one. Although it always is interesting to see any matches played in California. Mexico has a substantial crowd at those matches.
Yep.
So I'll be very interested to see how that plays out. But let me just go back to those FIFA World Rankings where we're talking about the context. Jamaica at 40? FIFA. That is way too fucking low for the reggae girls. You got to watch the games, bro. That's unfair. Mexico, USA aside, reggae girls, too low. Unacceptable.
We've got to make a call or something. Somebody's got to be accountable for that.
They made the knockout stage of the World Cup. What are we talking about?
Unbelievable. Yeah. You think you're taking Mexico against Jamaica on a neutral field or Argentina over Jamaica? Like, come on, man.
No way. Yeah, I don't get it.
Well, we will see. As mentioned, this one's going down Monday night, 10:15 p.m. Eastern. We'll be locked in. Quick turnaround for quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Those are going down next Saturday and Sunday. So we'll know our final 8, and the U.S. will be back in action again then as well. But I do want to scoot ahead, cross the pond the other way. UEFA Women's Nations League semifinals. We had a couple biggies. Let's start with the world champs. Spain taking on Netherlands. This one went down in Spain. Really impressive showing from España in this one. Sometimes it can be hard not to conflate what's happening with the Spanish national team and what's happening at Barcelona. Spain did start 6 Barca players. Plus Atiana, Olga Carmona, Jenny Hermoso, and the 2 Layas, Arsenal's Codina, and City's Alexandri. Spain sort of cruised in this one. Netherlands had some chances early, mostly created by Lynette Bierenstein, Esme Brooks, Miedema, and Lika Martens, but I think their midfield kind of let them down a little bit in this one. Weird lineup too, but we will cut them some slack at the ITC. I mean, they're only out here trying to slow down the world champions, as mentioned. Spain, though, in full control of this one in the first half. Salma Pariuelo, few rock-solid chances before Jenny Hermoso and Aitana both notched goals before halftime. I don't know, man. I was really, really impressed with the chemistry of the Spain team. I mean, I know they're World Cup champions, so obviously they're doing something right. But I think we're generally used to seeing club teams look more cohesive than even the best national teams. Yep. But this Spain side might be the exception to the rule. I mean, am I crazy, or is there something really, really and truly special about the Spanish national team? Maybe it's a combination of the talent plus the adversity that they've gone through as an organization. Mm-hmm. You know, they also seem like they all learn how to play like this unstoppable brand of football, like at the exact same time. Like as a country, it's like they all unlock something. Keep in mind, Spain played in their first World Cup in 2015. And this summer, they'll make their first appearance in the Olympics. They've never been there. Outside of their first appearance in the Euros, which came in 97, it took them until 2013 to get back to the Euros. So this is like ascending from obscurity to the absolute top of the mountain in 10 years' time. In your opinion, what exactly are we witnessing here with this team? Like maybe a little recency bias, but in an imaginary matchup, and obviously ignoring the fact that there's so much overlap, I think I might pick the Spain team to beat Barcelona, which seems crazy. Just last week, I'm saying, okay, this is the best women's team ever assembled, but I'm not so sure, man, after watching that. Are my eyes playing tricks on me, or is this maybe the perfect storm for the creation of a truly generational team?
I think you're 100% right. Think about it like this. What if we had 2 of our 4 defenders were Ona Batlle and Irene Paredes from Barcelona? Oh, but then we add Olga Carmona as one of those defenders now. Like, what? Like, come on now. Like, we're talking about 3 of the I'm not sure where people fall on Paredes, but like with Batlle and Carmona, we're talking about 2 of, at worst, the 10, 12 best defenders in the world. Like, at absolute worst, depending on where you land with Batlle. We might be talking about 2 of the 7 best, 2 of the 5 best.
I mean, they both made our. I think they both made our starting 11s last year, so
I think they did.
We'll just start there.
Yeah,
they might be a little higher than 10, 12.
Yeah, and so I would challenge anybody to give us a single reason why this Spanish team isn't capable of a generational run. I think that's done and dusted. We know what this team is capable of, and I think you make a really great point about the addition of not only do they have great players, not only do a lot of those great players play together at the club level, but however woo-woo or, like intangible it sounds, the adversity that these players have gone through together, I can't be talked off the point that brings people as human beings closer together. That makes you more invested in each other's success. Like, I love a good comparison of college football in America to professional soccer, but I've heard college football coaches say it, and it's one of the few things I agree with them on, is that if your team loves each other, I know it sounds corny. I probably sound somewhat ridiculous, but when you have a team full of people who love each other and care about each other's success, that absolutely translates to the field. You can see it.
Absolutely. You can also see it after Jenny Hermoso's first goal.
Yes.
Their manager, Montserrat Tomé, like, she just let out a fucking fist pump, like, yeah, I'm running this shit now, and like we're just gonna do it differently. The energy was just beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
they had some like FU to them in the World Cup.
Oh yeah.
Especially like when they would shun the manager and just be like, all right, he was like looking for someone to high five after the match. But they feel almost even more cohesive now that they're like, all right, we're running this show, and they're just doing it on the field, off the field. It's really fucking incredible.
It's fantastic. And so you asked the question, can they be a generational team? Is this a perfect storm for them to be a generational team? I think in my mind, yes. And I think some of it comes down to what people consider generational, right? So I think, I think we'll talk more about this later, but I think they would be a slight favorite over France at the Olympics. That's
Mm.
probably saying a lot considering the games are going to be played in Paris. But and I had to throw this caveat in here. With the Lionesses out of it, Lionesses will not be appearing because of the draconian Olympic rules.
Ridiculous.
Not because we lost games we should have won. But I think the possibility of seeing a final in the Olympics of France versus Spain, Spain versus the USA, or France versus the USA are all pretty enticing. So I want to ask, can I interest you in any of those three matchups? And which ones do you like the best?
Well, it's interesting because we're going to get France versus Spain on Wednesday in
Exactly.
the Nations League final. I thought it was really interesting that France was like, yeah, we're already in the Olympics. We don't really need this. Germany needed that one. They needed to reach the final to punch their ticket to the Olympics. Couldn't get it done. Obviously, the game's taking place in Lyon, so that was tough. But we're going to get Spain, France next week, buddy. So let's get
It's a
ready.
preview.
How can you not pick Spain, USA? I mean, especially like the Rocky 2 parallels. You get the US getting knocked out in the 23 World Cup, dusting themselves off, going up against Apollo, looks unbeatable.
I love it.
That one would just be glorious. Spain, USA. And I think we are going to learn quite a bit, because if the USA can really play this like link up style, I mean, it felt like watching the USA sorry to kind of rewind back a little bit. It felt like for years we never passed the ball back to create some forward action again. It was just like it was like a one way street all the time. And I think you watch Spain or Chelsea or Barcelona or Lyon, all the passes go in every single direction. The pass goes where the defense is not and where the opportunity is, right? And I think like if the US can kind of make that evolution, and on the flip side, if Spain can, you got like Bariuela, like she's still not even 21 years old yet. So you have her continuing to mature. Olga Carmona is 23 years old. Like, these are still players not yet in their prime. So you've got the best team with more players. Shout out to Jenny Hermoso too. I think she's 33. She's early 30s for sure.
Yeah.
That was one big difference between the Spain team and the Barcelona team. Like, you kind of see her steadying of the ship, how important she is, and just kind of their reaction after getting the goal. But I got to go Spain, USA, especially if like things continue to trend. Slight caveat where France feels like they might be coming on. We'll see on Wednesday.
Obviously, France, USA, we've seen them lock up in gigantic matches before in World Cups. I'm with you. Spain, USA, you got all kinds of parallels, even thinking about everything the Spanish national team went through, everything the USA national team has gone through, like through 2019 and equal pay and all that stuff. Like, there are a lot of juicy storylines, and the players on the pitch are just fantastic. So,
come on.
I mean, Spain, France next week, that's going to be phenomenal. And then to see it again, potentially, or to see these other heavy hitters go at it with the real stakes of the Olympics, what a time to be alive. But I will say, and I got to tell you, just there is a part of me in the back of my mind when you talk about Perejuelo and Carmona's age. It's just part of me as an England fan where I'm just like, that's a nightmare. That's not great. I don't love that. Like, I got faith in England's ability to develop young players, but fuck, man, that's tough.
Well, I mean, you guys got, think about the youngings, Keating, LJ, a couple others that are still pre-prime. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like the water level on the sport is just rising at an astronomical fucking rate. even from like the World Cup, like we're seeing teams kind of like make leaps off of that, Brazil, Colombia not included. But remember that USA Vietnam game where it was like 2-0 or 3-0 and just like, what the fuck did we just watch? Like we just sweated out 3-0 against Vietnam. But yeah, I think like just an exciting time. I want to follow up on your pop quiz, little thought exercise of my own. In your opinion, which of these do you think is more likely? Barca wins a Champions League. We've seen them maybe teeter, or not quite full wobble, but maybe a little baby teeter. Or Spain wins the gold medal at the Olympics.
Ooh, okay. This is a great question because I do think the double is super live. I think both could happen. Not sure where we can get the betting odds on that parlay. I'll look into it. I'll get back to you on that. Different podcast.
Different pod.
But I feel like, okay, if you're going to make me choose, I think the whirlwind of an Olympic tournament, it allows for more randomness than a Champions League run where you have like the 2 ties in the knockout rounds. So I'm going to say it's more likely, this hurts my heart a little bit, but it is more likely that Barcelona is sharpened by the ironclad club that is Braun. And I'll say it's probably more likely that Barcelona is able to get through and win the Champions League than it is for España to win the Olympics.
I take your point on, maybe Barcelona getting sharpened, by the Braun matchup. But on the flip side, no Braun in the Olympics.
That's true.
I don't know, just saying.
Your ass whipped, yeah. You're not playing you're not playing a bunch of clubber langs out there. So let me throw this at you because I was thinking about this. So USA won the gold medal in the Olympics in 1996, which were home matches for them, that Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. And as some might recall, the USA won the World Cup on July 10th, 1999. If we have younger viewers and listeners, I'd recommend that you Google that one. That was a good match. Exciting ending to that match, as it was. In 2012, USA won the Olympic gold medal and then went on to win the World Cup in 2015. And as far as I can tell, as far as my caveman brain can process, those look like they're the only 2 times that a national team has won a gold medal in the Olympics and the World Cup, or vice versa, like in any order, as far as I could tell looking at the records. So to win the World Cup and then win a gold medal back to back, it would appear that's a bit of a tricky proposition.
Yeah, I like your call of the maybe double. Spain is just cooking right now.
Amazing.
It was funny to see. I mean, Netherlands had a tough time. They were playing Sharita Spitzer like at the absolute middle of the park. A little weird. Yeah. Danielle Van de Donk couldn't really get going. Jackie Groningen, like she had her hands full, trying to run back and forth against that Barcelona attack. Up front, Netherlands was threatening, but once they couldn't break through first 20, 25 minutes, you kind of knew it was a wrap. And then Barca gets the 2 before halftime. The second one was a real backbreaker for Maitana. And it just feels like they've got such a good mix. We talked about like Barcelona's mix being a little weird. It's a lot of like people that can score from anywhere from 25 yards in. They could put a shot wherever they want it.
Right.
The Spain team's got, I think, a little bit more balance, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Bariuela's like the one, she's got her spot. Aitana's got her spot. Hermoso's like kind of coming in and, just playing really smart football. Carmona and Batier, they're up and down the field, basically playing the entire 100 yards.
Right.
But if the U.S. keeps trending in that direction, by that point, Emma Hayes will be in the building. So now we're going to be getting it straight from the source with regard to kind of like what we want to do, all the game planning, and I think a little bit more maturation from some of these young players that we were able to get excited about. All in all, I think super, super pumped. I think it's really excellent historical context thinking about just how difficult it is to go back-to-back World Cup Olympics or vice versa. So we're going to stay locked in. We've still got a lot of international football between now and the Olympics. Let's head to the other matchup, Nations League semifinal, France versus Germany. So this one was played in Lyon, as mentioned. It was always going to be tough sledding for Germany. Clara Bull, she was gunning early. She looked like she was super bound to get on the score sheet. 41st minute, though, perfectly struck Bosch a free kick. Bosch a ball, let's fucking go. Gets headed back out of danger by Leah Schuler, only to find its way to even more danger. The right boot of one Kandidatou Diani, who fires a fucking rocket into the bottom right corner to put France ahead 1-0. I think the French color commentator described it perfectly. And please pardon my terrible French accent. She described it as, woo, ho, ho.
So
After the
good.
ball is struck, I love this French lineup, top to bottom, even without Wendy Renard. Les Omer, Kototo, Basha up top, Diani, Gayoro, and Amandine Henry in the midfield. Backline spearheaded by Karshawi on one side, De Almeida on the other. Off the bench, Cascarino, Toletti, Sadie Baltimore all came in as subs. This is going to be a tough team to beat in any competition. I know we just got done talking about that Spain side, and I feel like I've definitely said this before, but if and when this French team puts it all together, they're going to be tough to deal with. The only thing is we haven't really seen them put it all together. You know, like they've sort of been in that favorites pool going back quite a bit, probably all the way back to that US matchup. I think at the World Cup when we played in France, that they didn't totally show up for. Last World Cup, they sputtered out of that one as well. But they seem to have kind of maybe unlocked something. This summer's Olympics, again, where they're going to be played on their home turf. 2 French teams left in the Champions League quarterfinals, each with a real shot to win it. That's if Braun stumbles. But again, France didn't need a result here to qualify for the Olympics. Germany did. And France still took care of fucking business. UEFA Nations League final going down in Sevilla, though, that's going to be tough. Tall task for the French. But with France having a bit of their moment, you know, as a footballing country on the women's side, how much do you like their chances to defend the home turf in the Olympics? But before we get there, Nations League final. This one's, like I said, it's going down to Sevilla.
Yeah.
What are you going to be looking for? What do you think is the outcome that would shock you the least?
Shocked me the least is Spain winning comfortably, honestly, 2-0. I don't think they run over France, but man, beating Spain in an important match. Other thing that won't shock me, Dale made a yellow card in that match. That's what are the odds on that? If we're talking gambling, like that's happening.
Give me all that.
I love the way she plays so much. I feel like, you know, we talk about her every episode for good reason. She's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a tall order. And France is great. France has an embarrassment of riches almost to the likes of Spain. But it's that link up. It's that chemistry that we just talk about with Spain that it's just like, that is hard to deal with. It's virtually impossible to deal with. And France has a good amount of that. I mean, you mentioned that front 6. Kototo, Lesamer, Basha, Henri, Gayoro, Diani. That's about as talented of a front 6 as you could possibly put on the pitch. But still, you know, when they are attacking Spain, I'm going to mention the 3 again. When you have Paredes, Batier, and Olga Carmona, like that's some heavyweight battle type of shit. And in Sevilla, you just got to think the level of pride, that heart of a champion. Shout out Rudy Tomjanovic. You cannot measure that. And I do think a Spain victory, maybe it's 0-0 at halftime, but Spain kind of pulls away at the end. I feel like that would shock me the least. Where are you at for next week's match?
I think I agree with that, but I think it'll be really competitive.
Sure.
I think the game's in the balance into the 70s, maybe into the low 80s.
Yeah.
I like the intensity from France.
Yes.
Probably De Almeida setting the tone there too.
Karshawi,
you know, she'll give you an elbow to the rib.
She will.
You know,
and like it.
Gayoro. Yeah, and Gayoro's like super opportunistic, very smart. You know, Lesamer, she's a scorer and a creator. You know, I think she knows so much. Her football IQ is 99 for talking FIFA ratings, obviously.
Sure.
Just because she knows exactly what to do, always makes the right play, and she tries some wild shit. I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think if France scores in this one, I want to see that.
Yes.
That's basically the challenger landing a big shot, getting a second round knockdown. And you're like, oh, okay, here we go. Now we're going to see something. I was rooting for France in this one because I wanted the third place match to have some stakes. Nice. Also in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't know. You know, Germany's pretty loaded. Like, quick note on the lineups. They brought their heavy hitters out for this one. Pop and Schuler up top. Clara Buhl, Oberdorf, Nuskin, and Svenja Huth in the midfield. Fucking loaded. Linder, Hegering, Henrich, and Julia Gwyn on the back line. Like, that's a fucking squad too. And even so, France overwhelmed them in the first half. A little bit of Basha ball, a little bit of Karshawi ball. A couple minutes after Diani's blast, and just before halftime, Marina Hegering, she fumbles a ball played her way. Eugenie Lesamer pounces. She knows she's going to have a runner like darting into some open real estate. Mm-hmm. So she grabs it. She's like, turn, and boom, plays a really smart pass upfield just into some space. Grace
Yeah.
Gayuro, she gets to it first, draws the penalty on Lena Oberdorf. Sakina Karshawi, she slides the PK in just past German keeper Merle France to put the French up 2. And that's a perfect example of like their quick strike is just real quick.
Yeah.
That I think is their one chance against Spain.
Yeah.
A loose ball, a quick pass, boom, ball's in the net. You're like, oh shit, all right, game on. They have that capability. Germany pulled one back late. They earned a penalty in the 80th minute. Julia Gavin blasted the PK into the top ending of the goal. Smoke coming off it. That had some real thunder to it. But like I said, I was glad to see France win because now that third place matchup between the Netherlands and Germany, massive stakes, birth to the Olympics at stake in that one. Good week of football, and I think we've got some fun ones coming up on Wednesday.
Good week of football that birthed the promise of more good football, I think. I like Karshawi taking the penalty. Think of the players on the pitch with her, your left back, and she's the one who takes the penalty. I fucking love that. You talk about like her attitude and the way she generally plays, her leadership skills packaged with De Almeida. She's on the pitch. I think Leissamer was off at that point, but she's on the pitch with Caridatu Diani and Grace Gayuro and Marie Antoinette Katoto. And they're like, nope, Karshawi's got it. She takes the penalty. She's the pen taker. That's fucking rad. What a great player.
Yeah, she's like a definite alpha on that team, but they might have 3 or 4 of those, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be a heavyweight battle between, France and Spain. Well, I'm totally with you. Like, we're talking about stacked rosters. I'm glad you named the Germany starting 11. Alexandra Pop and Clara Boule, they're gunning from Jump Street. I don't know what, and I don't want to get too far off on a tangent, but like, what are they missing? Like, they had the disappointing World Cup. I mean, can we blame everything on chemistry every time a team doesn't win? But I feel like you're missing something. Maybe they're missing a little bit of like that clinical touch. Maybe it just wasn't happening in this match versus France. But like, what's the final piece? Like, what wasn't happening for Germany, you think?
I mean, I'm probably typecasting, but I feel like it's a little bit of, I don't know, call it improvisation or call it fast twitch decision making. Yeah. You're just kind of missing that. A lot of it's like, all right, let's work it up. All right, we got a corner. Like now let's get real serious because like we're gonna do that thing that we know is gonna work, and it's just kind of not the most imaginative attack. I think a team like that is gonna really struggle. Actually, we're gonna see some shit against the Netherlands.
I think so.
I love Bernstein up front. Oh, I think she's dynamite and she's very unpredictable. She's got like a weird start-stop kind of action and she's a gunner. Like, I mean, which is great because then you pair her with Martins and Miedema. That's a nice mix that I think could give Germany trouble. So I think we're going to see, I always say it, styles make fights. If I'm right, I think we might see the Netherlands hit them with a weird shot that they don't see coming. Yeah. And Germany really struggle because if you're the Netherlands, you kind of know what to defend against, right? It becomes a little bit easy. Like, those Clara Boule chances came from a little far out. They were close because she's fucking awesome. Yeah. But that was the best that they got, Yeah. So it's going to be a little tough unless they can kind of switch up between here and Wednesday.
I'm totally with you. And I think one thing that I thought was interesting, I realize we're kind of bouncing. I mean, we're talking about 4 great squads and we're kind of bouncing around a little bit. I thought one thing was interesting, and this might be just a condition that happens when you're playing Spain, but when Lika Martins didn't take advantage, she had a couple good looks on goal against Spain. And when she didn't convert like the second one, I think later in the first half, I just like total body language doctor. I was just like, ooh, man, she really, if she buries that one, I think we're talking about a different match here. Because you're playing Spain and you're like, fuck, I got to convert those or we're dead. And like, you almost get an existential dread after that.
Yeah, I mean, the window closes so quick. I mean, Berenstein, she took those chances, couldn't convert. And I think once you have a couple looks, you can't really put one of them in. I mean, it gets real tough. But that Lika Martins couple moments that I think we're talking about the same moments here.
Yeah,
it's like when you take that one extra touch against Spain, you're fucked.
Yeah,
the swarm has arrived. It's over. The opportunity's out the door, and that's why I like this France side against them. That's why I think this matchup is going to be pretty compelling. Yeah, because they're happy to go quick. We're not going to waste time knocking it around and looking for something 5% better, 10% better, we'll just take this one.
Right.
You know, and I think that could be interesting. I think that might be the recipe to at least make it pretty competitive. So we'll see some exciting stuff just around the bend here.
I think so. And so I don't want to make it sound like I think Spain walks to a win. I think they're certainly capable of winning a match like 2-0, I think was the scoreline that came to my head. But if France is going to win, what if we get a Grace Oro game where she's just like she's holding the ball and she's a distributor and she's kind of playing triangles with Diani and Leissemer, and then we get our mix of Basha ball. We get set pieces with Basha setting shit up. Like I feel like that is something we could see. I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here. What if we see Amel Majri? What if she gets some time? End of the match. 31-year-old Lyon attacker. She's had her share of big, important matches. I don't think she appeared. Let me just double check, but I don't think she appeared in the Germany match.
No, she didn't get in.
Yeah, and like our gal Sandy Baltimore got it in the 90th. I was very psyched to see her get in. So, maybe she plays a role. Maybe you need speed and attacking toward the end. I will say there is a part of me that's like, okay, well, if they're bringing on Majri and Baltimore in the 70th minute against Spain, they might already be in a lot of trouble. But I do think when it comes to Majri, it's nice to have an attacker on the bench who the moment's not going to be too big for them. So I'm throwing it out, shot in the dark. If we see Majri, she might be able to do something special.
I like it. And I think the Grace Carrillo call too could be interesting because I think we've seen her at PSG just have a nose for the big moment.
Yes.
And I think all of a sudden now, ball's loose in a dangerous area. She might get there first and hit a pass that nobody's looking for to somebody streaking just from the complete wrong direction and might be able to flip a game that way.
Yep.
That's kind of the frequency she's been on this year. Like, let me just be half a step ahead and let me push it. She's been around forever. She's still just 26. She's been in all these big spots and big games. I think she broke through as a teenager, but she's still obviously in her athletic prime, which you forget because she's so smart and she's so crafty, but it's just because she's so experienced. So I love that call. And we'll see. Just compelling matchup up and down.
It's going to be a banger, I think, either way. Even if it does end 2-0, either way, I think we'll have a ton to talk about, a ton to analyze, reanalyze, overanalyze.
Mm-hmm.
That's what football's for. That's what we're doing here.
That's what the pod's for too. Let's fucking go.
That's it.
All right. So we know that we've got the Nations League final coming up Monday night. As mentioned, 10:15 p.m., U.S. Women's National Team back in action against Mexico. That's going to close out the CONCACAF Gold Cup group stage. Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. This one's interesting. Talked about the League B, League A, Nations League promotion relegation battles. Iceland travels to Serbia after their 1-1 draw with a place in League A, which is basically Europe's top 16 on the line. Some fun Bayern connections here. Glodis Vigasdottir, she's on the Iceland side. Jovana Damjanovic, she's on the Serbia side.
Yeah.
Norway, Belgium, and Sweden, they all took care of business on the road, all three heading back home for their reverse fixtures, and all three comfortably in the driver's seat to stay in League A based on match one score lines. Talked about the Nations League final. That one's going down Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. And finally, third place match with first place stakes. Let's fucking go. Germany versus Netherlands playing for a spot in the Olympics. That one's happening 2:45 p.m. Eastern. So right after Spain, France. That's going to be a nice little 4-ish hours of football, buddy.
Hell yeah.
Gold Cup quarterfinals also kick off next weekend. So we will be very busy. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think we've done it. I'll tell you, part of the plight of living in the United States of America is I had some trouble tracking down that Norway result. I was trying to, find the highlights. I saw Hegerberg scored. I saw CGH scored. Even in the YouTube era that we live in, I was having a hell of a time finding highlights. What were you able to find out there?
I found a really shoddy YouTube live stream. Thankfully, yes. I was in position when the game was going down. You mentioned it. Ada Hegerberg scores like a very Ada kind of goal. CGH, incredible finish, 49th minute. Guro Reiten, killer assist for their third goal. They kind of outclassed Croatia. But I want to hit their lineup real quick.
Yeah.
Ada Hegerberg up front, Guro Reiten, Frida Manum, CGH. Ingrid Engen was in the lineup. Aurora Mikkelsen in goal. Melde on the back line. I mean, I think this team, I can't quite remember a lot about their World Cup this past summer. I know that they kind of didn't quite have the showing that they would have liked, but with this kind of roster, I think they're going to be pretty difficult to contend with. I think if they kind of keep all these players in form. But they looked really good. Looks like they're definitely going to stay in that League A mix. All they've got to do is not lose to Croatia at home by more than 3 goals. So
All right.
I think we can pretty much pencil them in.
I feel like we should we could feel comfortable about that. Yeah, that 11, that's a fucking squad there. And I think that also plays into when we talk about like Spain being generational, like what level of generational are we talking about? Because when Spain goes to
Mm-hmm.
the Euros, not only do they have to contend with the Lionesses and France and Germany, but then you're also going to have Norway and Sweden in there. Like there are a lot of squads, so there are a lot of stumbling blocks, even as Spain looks like world beaters. So yeah, I will have to look for whatever sketchy stream I can find next time Norway plays because I want to watch all their matches. So yeah, I'll be on the hunt for them YouTube lives.
Yeah, and shout out to everybody who responded on Twitter trying to help us out with the stream. But a lot of geofencing. I don't know. Maybe we can put a call into the zone or somebody of that
Yeah.
ilk that we can maybe help us out a little bit. We're trying to cover some stuff, and tough to not be able to find some of the best footballers in the world playing live in the age of the internet. I mean, come on. With that said, I think we did it, man. It's been another episode of Into the Channel. Remember, subscribe or follow Into the Channel on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen at ITC_pod on X, at Into the Channel pod on Threads. Big thanks to you for watching and listening, no matter your club, no matter your country. The Into the Channel community is a place where we can all hang out, share ideas, fire off all these takes, and celebrate the sport we love. We are thrilled to have each and every one of you hanging out with us and engaging. Comments, ratings, reviews, always appreciated. Big thank you to my co-host for braving the international break in the middle of the club season. Stays ready. You stay ready. You don't have to get ready. Appreciate you, man.
I appreciate that. Just trying to stay in game shape. And as Dino said, no sketchy streams necessary for us. You find us on regular old YouTube, regular old Spotify, regular old Apple Podcast. We don't need the sketchy stream just yet. If there is a need for the underground, we'll go there with you guys to watch whatever football we need to find. But yeah, as Dino said, appreciate you guys rocking with us. I mean, we got to gear up. Speaking of staying ready, let's gear up for another great week of football, and we'll talk to you guys next week.